Analysis of the household component of farming systems. The analysis of the household includes, in addition to demands and contributions to income, the provision for the people who live in and from farming systems. Since income and provisions from household activities can be subject to fluctuations, this analysis must also consider uncertainty. The difference between the monetarily valued revenues and expenses that arise in the household constitute the household's contribution to the total income. This contribution is usually negative, as expenses include all purchases and other costs for maintenance. Monetary revenues only arise if goods or services are produced in the household for sale outside of the farming system. The monetary impacts of the household component of farming systems on the total income include sales proceeds from products made in the household, such as handicrafts or home processing of own agricultural products, as well as income from services provided by the household, such as caring for third parties or managing internet offerings. Expenses include the costs for food, beverages, and clothing, the costs for household consumption of water and energy, costs for health and education, costs for household items and furnishings, and costs for general insurance, household-specific fees, such as broadcasting and telephone fees, as well as the costs for private transportation. However, household contributions to a farming system consist mostly out of unpaid but indispensable services, such as kitchen work, childcare, cleaning, health care and so on. Such services can be indirectly monetarily valued, for example, through substitution cost approaches. However, the effort for such indirect evaluations, which always rely to some extent on subjective assumptions, rarely stands in a meaningful relationship to the gain in knowledge about the material situation and the decision-making behavior of farm owners. Therefore, the analysis of the household component takes a different approach. It records the unpaid services in quantitative units only and compares the provided quantities with the actual or desired needs of the farming family. Deficits between current supply and demand then provide indications of possible competition for resources between the household and the other components of a farming system. This analysis of quantitative household supply also takes into account purchased goods and services. Deficits here primarily indicate competition for capital that is alternatively available for agricultural purposes or household needs. The analysis of uncertainty focuses then on fluctuations and their probabilities. Statements are derived from the comparison with critical thresholds of minimal provision. The unpaid services are a central element of the living standard of farming families. The living standard is itself the central element of the decisions of the agricultural family. Accordingly, household provision has a significant influence on the distribution of resources between the subareas of a farming system. This distribution then determines the options for decisions about agricultural activities. An analysis of household supply considers the provision of food, water, energy, health, education, communication means, and social and cultural participation as mandatory areas. In individual cases, special areas such as clothing and household equipment may also be included.